why Ubuntu is bad for desktops, but excellent for laptops. People always tell you, just install Ubuntu, but for many desktop users, it never quite fits. In this video, I'll explain why that happens, and why the exact same things make Ubuntu a fantastic choice for laptops. Quick roadmap. First, I'll show why the default desktop workflow on Ubuntu can feel awkward on larger monitors. Then I'll explain why that very workflow, plus Ubuntu's hardware support, is often ideal on laptops. I'll finish with practical tips: what to change on a desktop, and what to expect when you buy a Linux laptop.
Why Ubuntu can feel off on desktops. 1. A workspace-first UI, not a classic desktop. Ubuntu ships with the GNOME shell as its default desktop. GNOME's design centers on an activities overview and multiple workspaces, rather than the classic, always visible taskbar plus system tray paradigm many Windows users expect. That difference is deliberate, but on a large 24 to 32-inch monitor, it often feels like an unnecessary change rather than a solution to a real problem. 2. People immediately tweak it. A very common first step after installing Ubuntu is to add GNOME extensions that recreate a more traditional taskbar or restore legacy tray icons. For example, people use dash to panel and tray icons reloaded to make the desktop behave like Windows or KDE. Those extensions are popular because many users simply prefer the legacy desktop model on bigger screens.
3. That friction is not a defect. It's a design choice. The argument isn't that GNOME is bad, it's that it optimizes for a different interaction model: workspace navigation and overview-driven multitasking. On desktops, where window tiling and side-by-side apps already solve clutter, GNOME's changes can feel like solving a problem you don't have. Why the same traits make Ubuntu great on laptops. 1. Workspaces plus gestures equals practical on small screens. On a 13 to 15-inch laptop, screen real estate is precious. GNOME's Activities Overview and workspace-focused workflow lets you separate tasks into neat groups and switch between them quickly. Combined with 3 or 4-finger touchpad gestures, open overview, switch workspaces, etc., this workflow becomes fast and natural on a laptop, much more so than with a mouse-driven, multi-window desktop. Ubuntu documents and support pages show these gestures are a first-class interaction on the platform. 2. Hardware and driver practicalities. Ubuntu aims to just work on a very wide range of consumer laptops. Because of its popularity and packaging choices, Ubuntu makes it straightforward to install proprietary drivers, NVIDIA, some Wi-Fi firmware, etc., via tools like additional drivers or Ubuntu drivers, which matters a lot on laptops that ship with vendor-specific components. By contrast, distributions that avoid shipping non-free blobs by default, such as the Fedora project, can require extra steps, RPM fusion, manual repos, to get the same out-of-the-box experience. That difference is a practical win for Ubuntu on many modern laptops. 3. Power management and suspend-resume reality check. Laptop power management, suspend-resume, lid-close behavior, is highly hardware-dependent. Ubuntu often provides convenient, tested tooling and drivers that reduce friction, but it's not immune to occasional suspend-resume bugs. Community reports show issues still happen on some hardware. In short, Ubuntu improves the odds that a laptop will behave correctly, but you should still verify suspend resume on your specific model. Practical advice: desktop users versus laptop buyers. If you plan to use a desktop, big monitor plus mouse, consider a distribution or flavor that ships a traditional desktop paradigm out of the box. For example, Linux Mint or Zorin OS. They save you the step of reconfiguring GNOME. Or keep Ubuntu but plan a few minutes post-install. Install dash to panel, enable app indicator/tray extensions, and tweak the window snapping settings so the desktop behaves the way you expect. If you plan to use a laptop, Ubuntu is a strong first choice because of driver availability and gesture-first UX. Still, always test the live USB on the model you care about. Check Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, brightness keys, suspend resume, and NVIDIA/graphics switching if applicable. Use the additional drivers tool, or Ubuntu drivers, for GPU drivers. Bottom line, Ubuntu's opinionated desktop design makes it feel odd on large, mouse-centric desktops. But the same opinions, combined with strong vendor driver support and touchpad gestures, make it a very practical choice for laptops. If you liked this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, do you prefer GNOME's workspace workflow or the classic taskbar?
Thanks for watching, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for daily videos. Bye.